Good evening, everybody. This is the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee, and this is August 28th. If everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am pleased to note that we have nearly perfect attendance of the committee, -1. We also have Gary Persinger as well as Dwayne Hicks, who is here on behalf of the town. And so we do have a quorum. We have one person from the public present, and I do not see anybody virtually, but I remind members of the public that you have 2 minutes for comment for each topic discussed. May I have a motion with respect to the adoption of the agenda?
I move that we adopt.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposition? The agenda is passed. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes that were prepared for the July 31, 2025 meeting? Any comment on those? Without hearing a comment from the public or from the committee, may I have a motion?
I move to adopt the minutes.
Any second on the motion to approve the July 31, 2025 minutes?
Second.
All in favor of approving them?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? No public comment, all in favor of it, the minutes are passed. So I want to focus tonight on 2 action items. We're going to primarily focus on the letter A as well as B under Roman numeral 4. The town met, as we had discussed before, on the 15th of August and discussed our presentation that Gary had brought to them with the documents that Liam and Gary had prepared. And they wish for us to do some more work on that. One of the things that they would like is for other municipalities to be contacted to find out which consultant groups they used and some basic data on that, what the costs were, what the time periods for the presentation, how long it was for implementation. And so there wasn't a vote, but there is lots of interest. And so that is what needs to be worked on between now and the next meeting. What I would like to do is turn this over to Gary to discuss it a little further, along with the document that he presented to us, although that may also overlap with the other item in the agenda. Gary, could you chat with us about this, please?
Sure. As I think you pointed out, this was a discussion-only item on the commissioner's agenda, so we could not have approved this project, at least at that time. Having said that, the commissioner spent about 15 minutes or so, I think, talking about this project, and I think we got a very good reaction from everybody around the table. Everyone thought that this was would be a good positive addition to the information that we have regarding the challenges that we face from climate and the need to be resilient. I think overall they believe that the report could serve as a useful guide to help us in deciding what our priorities would be in the future. A lot of recognition that some of what might be a priority turn out to be a priority could be very expensive, so we may have some funding challenges, but this would begin to lead us in the right direction toward the important things that we really should plan to do over the next X number of years, whatever we decide our planning horizon will be as we get into this kind of project. Um, I I did discuss the possibility of well, we talked a bit about funding. We acknowledged that some of the funding sources, particularly on the federal side, have dried up under the new administration. There are still some other funding sources out there, but certainly not as plentiful. And some of the funding sources that other municipalities have used for this kind of work just aren't available now. So I did raise the possibility of maybe supporting this with town funds. And there was certainly receptivity to that. The first suggestion was that maybe we would want to build this into next year's budget. Uh, so that beginning April 1 of next year, we would have the money to pursue this. We also talked a bit about maybe on a shorter time frame, certainly, using money from the infrastructure fund to support the cost of the project. And there was certainly receptivity toward that as well. We would need to get some approval or at least some consultation from the infrastructure committee if we wanted to go that route. But you know what the infrastructure committee does and what we do in terms of infrastructure projects just overlaps greatly with the emphasis that this committee has on resiliency and sustainability. So it certainly does make a lot of sense if we were to go that way to use infrastructure money to support this project. In presenting this, one of the benefits that I thought, and I picked this up from the GMB response, was that having a baseline report like this, being able to demonstrate that we've thought through these issues and what may need to be done to address the key issues that come out of this report could serve as leverage for gaining grant money for other projects or gaining grant money for some of the projects perhaps that come out of the resiliency report. And I use St. Michael's as an example. That was the example that GMB pointed to. And I think they said that they were able to use the report as leverage, or the work that GMB did for them as leverage for, I think, 5 or 6 additional grants. And there was a lot of interest in that. And unfortunately, I did not have details on what those additional grants were and what sort of projects they were able to accomplish with that additional grant money. So that really prompted, I think, what Deborah suggested, to get some more details on examples of specific recommendations to Delaware municipalities as part of this kind of work and how they were implemented, and to try to help understand what the product would be from this project, what's been accomplished by other municipalities, and what the benefit has been. We all think this is an important area. The commissioners think this is a very important area, but there's an education function. I think, we still need to educate them on the benefits of doing this kind of project. So it makes it an easier job of getting them their agreement to fund this kind of work. So again, it was, very, very positive discussion. Please feel free to go back and listen to the discussion. Even though we had some technical difficulties on August 15th, there is a recording that's available, Zoom recording, so that you can review the conversation if you like.
So can I hear a comment from the committee members on that?
There is some back information, about the contractors and money the other communities have spent and who the leads were. We're sort of beholden to how much time they're willing to spend with us. As an example, I could never get a hold of Mike Locke from AECom, and that's who Fenwick used. And she was in touch with me through email several times and tried, and it didn't go anywhere within the time frame. So I'm wondering, we can drum up some more of these contacts, like we have Amy Moresco for Lewis, who used the Brent Jet from GMB, and we have Susan Brennan, who was the contact at Fenwick, and the AECom guy, whose name was Mike Locke. And so maybe my thought is, maybe we have to reach out and make a meeting or something, because emails weren't, in the end, some of these people weren't coming through, and we are asking favors. So maybe in person would be a better approach with some specific questions. Or maybe if we have specific questions, they can go in the, because we were sort of asking general impressions more before, but now it sounds like the commission has specific questions.
So one of the things I envisioned based on the August 15th meeting that I attended was perhaps developing a grid and showing that, for example, it would say Fenwick used whatever company, this is how long it took, this is how much they paid, if we can find out the funding sources, and then additional projects or which projects were implemented, and do that to the extent that we can. We may have to contact the municipalities themselves and find out who's the head of committees that are comparable to what we do, and try that. And so
there is a little bit of like apples to oranges because they're all structured slightly differently, and some people have it within the structure of someone's managing the contract who's an employee, other people are volunteers, but there's a lot to be garnered from the individual websites, and I think we all tried to approach them with as much information as we could get, so we weren't asking dumb questions.
Deborah, can I ask a question when you guys are finished?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how to dial down more efficiently, I guess is my,
So I'm going to suggest that the subcommittee speaks of first developing the grid of the information that we would like to ultimately develop, ideally, I guess, is we may not be able to get all the information from all the municipalities, but to the extent that we can, and maybe even put in whether it's what their committee is or what the source is of the information, so that we can educate the commissioners as much as possible and spend a few months on this, so that our next meeting is perhaps the end of October or something of that nature, so that we can then discuss what you've been able to put together, and then whether we think there's other opportunities to provide additional information, and ultimately then to submit it to the commissioners. Dave, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about collecting information on what the other municipalities have done, which contractors they used, and what projects have been undertaken. I doubt that you'd see too many that have been completed, but there may be a few. Gary, the question I have for you is, how does that help the council make a decision to spend $75,000 on a study that we've clearly outlined and the company has provided details about what they're going to do? I don't understand why we need, it sounds like make work to me to do all of this. When, we put a proposal in front of the council that said, here's a legitimate company who's done this kind of thing before, here's their proposal, it's pretty specific and detailed, and here's the price. To me, it's like, what are we waiting for?
And just to add on to that, some of this information was in the back documents.
Yeah. So Garrett, do you have any thoughts on that or opinion?
Yeah, I think it's less important right now, and in the stage we're in, to spend a lot of time on collecting information about the other contractors and what the price was and that sort of thing. The real question that came up as we were discussing is really, what's the value to each of the municipalities? What sort of value have they drawn from doing this kind of baseline work? And what kinds of projects have they been able to get underway as a result of having done this kind of baseline effort?
Well, how does that help us?
They would like to have a better statement of value, I think. They would like to know, they were particularly intrigued by the notion that you could use this sort of work to leverage the possibility of getting additional grant money for other kinds of projects.
So, but all the collecting this additional information, all that's going to do is ratify that thought process that yes, this is worth doing. I mean, they seem to accept in principle that this is needed, but all of this sounds like extra work to me that doesn't lend the kind of value that it takes the time to do. We have a proposal, we have an amount, we have the details from the contractor. I mean, I don't understand what more they need to make a decision on this.
Well, and I don't think there's ever going to be an exact risk reward number.
Right.
There is a leap of faith at some point. I mean, one thought, we could maybe have the contractor present to the commission, but, and field questions.
So what I'm going to ask is that the subcommittee just spend a little bit more time with it, see if we're able to gather any additional information and perhaps simplify it into a grid to show the projects that may have been done or at least have been approved to be done for some of the municipalities that have hired similar consultants, so that at least we can show that to the commissioners. And yes, it is additional work, but if that's what's going to tip it over to get the funding and potentially open up sources to grants that may otherwise be limited, it may not hurt to just take one more stab at it. Your thoughts on that?
My take on the grid is that we're not going to be looking at apples to oranges. I think the municipalities all undertook, did what they wanted to do, the way they wanted to do it. In some cases, that's just piecemeal. It's a project here, a project there. So how we would compare that to what we're talking about is something I'm a little bit concerned about.
Yeah, and if you take Lewis as an example, they ended up hiring them for multiple projects, so maybe that's something that would appease or help our commission to know. But then they hired an intern, and then, it's not so black and white.
Yeah.
And, that information does exist. I feel like it's I don't know how much more we can simplify it for them.
And that may be what we need to do, is just say, we are not comparing apples to oranges, but this municipality hired X company, and as a result of that, these projects were done.
I mean, if you look back to our January meeting and notes, and the bullet points we presented at that meeting, it really is basically that. And maybe there's a little bit tidying up and more information.
I think that if we could at least put the effort in, and even if we say we just can't give you any more, this is as much as we have, but we've contacted the following, at least it meets what the commissioners would like to hear, which is we have exhausted all efforts. So I appreciate, Dave, that it is more work and it may not accomplish a lot more, but if it gives the commissioners a greater comfort level that we've explored it, it may be helpful to push us over where we need to be to get the approval.
How about one more, just an extra thought here. If in talking to the towns, we get some clarification as to whether there was any matching funding for this initial study that the towns did, and that may or may not still exist, BRIC, obviously, that kind of thing. But I mean, maybe if we can find a source for at least part of the cost of the $75,000 to bring down the overall cost of doing this study, that would satisfy the curiosity here and maybe get things moving off the schneid. Because I think if we presented this and it was a free study, I think everybody would give it a big thumbs up. Let's go do it. $75,000 is a price tag. Maybe we can find a way to bring that down a little bit, and that would be helpful, and maybe get them to say, yeah, let's go with this.
I think that would certainly be helpful. And I think one of the things Gary was discussing was that there may be additional projects that come out of it that overlap with another committee or another fund, like the infrastructure fund, that would lend more support to those dollars being spent for this overall study. Am I speaking correctly, Gary?
Yeah, yes, I think that the main question here really is the kind of the value of doing this kind of work. I mean, if you were to contact St. Michael's, for example, and it turned out that they thought the GMB work really didn't take them very far, that they were able to get 6 additional projects because they did, a whole range of other things. And that was really why, that was the impetus for being able to get that grant money. We wouldn't, you know, wouldn't help our case very much. I don't think we'll find anything like that. But it's just, um, we'd like to have a bit more support in terms of the value proposition. I don't think it has to be, extensive or, terribly rigorous. I don't think we have to worry about apples and oranges terribly. We don't have to worry so much really about who did the study, unless whoever did the study is a potential contractor. So again, I think that value proposition is needs to be a little better supported. And just let me go through a couple of other things that I think we should think through or plan to follow up on. And the first one is just to nail down whether or not there are any other potential contractors that we should pursue. There was no objection necessarily to going with GMB as the contractor, if in fact collectively the committee believes that they offer the best opportunity for getting this done. And then secondly, just to kind of do a better assessment of or fuller assessment of what the potential is for outside funding. Dave just mentioned that. I think the committee just needs to show that we have been relatively exhaustive in assessing whether or not there's some other outside funds. And the committee could certainly come back and recommend that they believe that the best path forward is using town funds, and that could be the committee's recommendation. But I think there needs to be a little bit more work just to make sure that we seem to have done a relatively exhaustive job of assessing the potential for outside funding.
Other comments from committee members on this?
Gary, do you see this being a voting item at the next meeting if we uh if we find all the information that they're looking for?
I think it would be a little, I don't think we could do that as a voting item in September, because I don't think this committee is going to come back together, unless we have some way of, I'm just not sure. I think the committee may have to get together again, develop a formal recommendation, and then take that to the next council meeting, just after this committee's next meeting.
Okay.
Liam, what I'm contemplating on that is that if hypothetically our next meeting is late October, we will miss the commissioners meeting, but perhaps it could then be brought in November if it's ready to go at that point. Does that address your question?
Yeah, I think that gives us a little more time. That'd be good.
Again, go ahead, Liam.
Just one more thing that we could kind of supplement what the commissioners are looking for, and I'm glad Dawn's on the call because she might be able to talk about this a little more. But the community rating system, I'm curious to know what this sort of planning will do in terms of a discount on flood insurance premiums for all the residents of Dewey.
Evening. When it comes to CRS, they have a multiplicity of subjects that they give varying discount points. We cannot expect. I'm sorry. We cannot expect by doing one item that we get a ton of discounts, a ton of points. From many times from year to year, the CRS committee or the CRS program can change their mind whether or not they will give you CRS points for discounts. There's a manual that I have in my office. It's over 600 pages for CRS. I can't tell you right off the top of my head where in that particular manual it states that if you do this, you'll get X number of points, I can find some of that information and be able to email it to you or have you be able to see. But it is not based on one item. It's not based on the comprehensive plan. It's not based on maybe one or two things. The town is audited once a year by the CRS program. And when they do it once a year, the annual, they are looking at the elevation certificates for new home construction. They want to have the new homes elevated if they're in a special flood hazard area. FEMA does promote elevation. And so we, as a town, are doing well with that on our annual audits. I have a 5-year audit coming up in, is it October? I think it's within the next few months. I do not know what they will be asking. I've not gone through that before, but from my understanding, is that they go through a lot of items, and it would possibly also include things like infrastructure. So I can get additional information for you, but to be able to say we will get X number amount in discounts, it cannot be stated. It cannot be, it can be hoped for, but it is no guarantee you will get it.
Well, and this is a study, so would it even, not until we're implementing the things from the study, would it apply?
And of course, things might change with time.
Yeah.
So each year.
Mm-hmm.
Liam, does that answer what you were asking?
Yes, thank you, Dawn.
And I'll be glad to get you that information. What I'll do is I'll send it to Deborah, and then you, Deborah, if possible, can disseminate it and be able to have everybody all on the same page with the same kind of information.
I'd appreciate that, and I'd be happy to circulate it. It may be a point that we discuss at the next meeting. Certainly the subcommittee for this should take a look and see if it has any relevancy. Other comments from the committee members on this subject?
I do think it's what you described as a realistic time frame. We stopped pursuing some of these contacts because we were putting it forward already. And hopefully there's a bit more information to garner from that.
And if it turns out we can't get more information, then that is what we will tell the town, but it would be helpful to kind of push it over for funding considerations. There's a member of the public here. Do you have any comment?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
And I don't see, thank you. And I don't see anybody virtually appearing from the public. So at this point, I'm hearing that what we're going to do is have the subcommittee reevaluate, see what additional information can be obtained from various municipalities, including from people that have done these studies and what projects they implemented as a result of that, any additional information from regarding funding that may have come other than from directly the municipality itself. And it sounds like that will then be a major topic for the next meeting. Any additional comments on that?
Just very briefly, I don't want the members of the committee to feel like this is a make work kind of thing. It really is not. And it shouldn't be, a real comprehensive, exhaustive kind of search for additional information. As you go through your contacts and you begin to collect some information, keep me in the loop. And, I may be able to at some point say, well, this is probably enough. That really is really what the commissioners were looking for. Again, the reaction of the commissioners is really very positive. They all believe that this is a worthwhile project. It should be pursued. But there are just some follow-up issues that, we would like to address. They would like to have addressed before we go forward with this.
One more quick thought, please. It may be beneficial to have the contractor available to make a very brief presentation of the plan at that November meeting and let the commissioners ask questions of them to get a sense that, confidence to help, increase the case here.
I think that's a good suggestion, Dave.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, frankly, my initial reaction is to just call and ask him some of these questions flat out. But I can understand the reluctance to only having one really full sort of response from the contractors. But we have to remember we're a unique, small community, and some of the contractors that did respond really don't specialize in this. They specialize in the implementation element of it. So they said, we'll try, we're willing, and that didn't sound right either. So, maybe we need to go further out. We were looking at our group of 7 here, but like you mentioned, St. Michael's, maybe there's something similar. So go a little bit further.
So we'll see what we can do, and we'll revisit this at our next meeting. And if the subcommittee can put any kind of an outline together, of bullet points for us to consider, that might be helpful as well. Anything else on this topic? Okay, so I want to move on to the next topic, and if you reviewed the agenda, you will see that at the meeting, the town has passed our name change, and we do have a new name. So thank everybody for your contributions on that. They went well noted, and it seemed to be a fairly easy vote. The other line items that we have here, I believe, are much like what we discussed the last time, which is that until we get past our initial topic, we probably aren't going to be able to move forward on any of those. But if anybody feels differently, now would be a time to hear that. Anyone?
Well, you're talking about the other agenda items, D, E,
Yes.
F? Okay.
Yes, I did want to find out any movement on the marketing committee.
Yeah, I would, there's a glimmer of hope with respect to finding a chairman for the marketing committee. Last Saturday, the Dewey Beach Civic League had a session that was originally intended to be a candidate session for the people who were running for the 3 open seats as town commissioners. Since we only had the 3 incumbents running and no one else filed before the deadline for filing, there won't be an election this year. So the meeting was still held, but it was basically a forum where all 5 of the commissioners sat there and we took questions from the audience. Someone raised the question of what has happened to the Marketing and Communications Committee. And I'm not sure, but that person may have offered to chair the committee, and I'm not sure of that. I would, have to check with some others. I haven't had a chance to check with Commissioner Bauer, who staffs that group, but that was at least some glimmer of hope. There's certainly people who see value to it. We just need someone to step up and agree to be the chair.
So I take it you don't want to share the names so that we put pressure on that person to accept? No, I'm kidding, Gary.
I actually, I don't know the name. I mean, I could get the name, but I don't know who it was. I know who the person was in the audience, but I'm not sure whether she was actually volunteering to chair the committee.
Well, I appreciate if you keep us posted, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that somebody gets to fill that position in the near future, because that would help, I think, in some of the things we would like to do. Other items that are listed in our agenda that any member or anyone else believes we should address tonight in light of where we stand with our major item.
Do you want to cover the last item that for which I sent the document earlier this afternoon?
Please, do you want to
Okay.
speak on that?
Yeah. I had agreed at the last meeting, and let me, I need to pull up an email as well. Just one second. Sorry. Um, I had agreed at the last meeting to find out more about what the town's plans are and what the procedures are in the event of a significant weather disaster. And I had agreed to talk with the town manager about that and collect other information that might be available. Find out a little bit more about what the town actually has in place that people can access on this issue. And I did get some input from the town manager. And he is, along, I think probably Dawn is part of this as well. They have been attending meetings of the Sussex County Emergency Management Group, um, the Delaware Emergency Management Agency, and DelDOT on emergency and evacuation planning. There is a draft plan that the town manager has been working on in terms of updating the town's emergency plan. It's still in draft and isn't finished yet, but it still has some work to be done. But that is something that needs to be done. And I think when we get to the document that I sent you, you'll see that kind of emergency plan is something that Sussex County believes is essential part of a hazard mitigation program. So having said that, let me talk just a little bit about the document. What I did was just to try to pull some material out of the Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which the town has signed on to. And there is a matrix there. I kind of reversed the pages of the document just a bit, just to give you an overview of where Dewey stands. And then as you go through this, you will quickly get to a matrix which shows how Dewey compares to other areas. It's a little bit voluminous here because there are a number of codes that are included in the grid, the comparative grid, where you can see where each of the municipalities stand. And the following material explains what each of those those initials mean. Yeah, just for example, a hazard management plan, which would be HMP. A CLUP would be a comprehensive land use plan. That's basically the kind of comprehensive plan that Dewey Beach has, which is updated every 10 years. So I didn't really want to, say too much about the content of this. I just wanted to give you a flavor for the kinds of things that need to be addressed as we move forward with this. It's actually also quite broad because it addresses not only possible weather events, but they're talking about fire and other types of events that might occur that would need to be mitigated in some way. In terms of information that the town already has, let me just talk a little bit about that. The town does have on its website under the links for property owners, it does have flood information, which is listed under a major category of useful information. And then it does have hurricane safety information under a major heading of help. That again is the link for property owners. On the visitor side, there is hurricane safety information under a general heading of general information. What I found interesting, and maybe this possible recommendation here, is every year the town publishes or produces an information guide, which provides kind of an overview of the rules in Dewey Beach. What can you do with your dog? What are the parking regulations? That sort of thing. But there's nothing in there about hurricane safety information. It might be, an easy thing to include in an information guide like that. Where people should go if they need to have information about hurricane safety. If you dig into the information that's been included on the town website on hurricane safety, it really is quite extensive. And I think that the town also has available for people something, a little pamphlet or sheet that says know your zone, which refers to the evacuation zone. The state has identified I think 4 or 5 different evacuation zones designated with a letter. Dewey is in the all of the shore communities are in the evacuation zone. And then, if you know your evacuation zone, you can be alert to hearing information about that zone and any instructions for evacuation. So there's a lot of information out there. It may be worthwhile for members of the committee to take a look at this. And, we may have some additional recommendations about how to improve both the content and the access to this kind of information.
So I took a look at what you had circulated, and Kelly and I were talking about this tonight. Some of what Dewey didn't have raised some concerns for us, and perhaps, as you've indicated, it exists, but not in a way that we can easily access it or know how to access it. It seems to me that it would be helpful to be able to better understand what Dewey should have as an overall emergency plan, if you will. And so for a lot of the places on that chart that were left unmarked that Dewey doesn't have, to explore whether they're available under some other form or whether it's something we may want to recommend to the town to actually get implemented, because every one of those seems to be, and I'm talking about the acronyms that were in that grid, it seems to me that each of them, in order to have a complete coverage, should ultimately have a check mark, and they didn't.
Yeah, but I think also you have to remember this was 2022. That's when the last assessment was done. So the other thing you'd want to add to this assessment is something like this already in development?
And that's one of the things I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
Gary. Is that something that you would be able to ascertain with ease, whether or not there have been market changes since this was put together, before we start figuring out if there are areas that we need to explore?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. That should not be a difficult task.
So if anybody hasn't had a chance, because it was circulated a little later, there's a 22-page document that Gary shared with everybody. And in it is a grid of the various local municipalities and what they have and what they don't have. And towards the top of that grid, it lists for Dewey what it has and what it doesn't have. So if we could ask of you, Gary, to please bring back to us at our next meeting what has changed since that, and then we can revisit it in terms of what we may want to do as a result of that. And that would give everybody an opportunity to more thoroughly review what was circulated.
Yes.
And I guess there's a few that might not even be applicable, like the radiological emergency. And I'm sure many of them overlap as well based off
Right.
plans. And so maybe some of these lack of check marks is okay.
So what I'd like to do is put that back on our agenda for our next meeting and have you give us greater information. Would that be okay?
That's fine for me, yes.
Okay, other comments from the committee?
Gary, I just didn't understand where the document came from. Was this part of a Sussex County
Yeah,
report?
I'm sorry. I did this too quickly this afternoon, and I didn't document it as carefully as I should have. This is from the Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Plan. It's a much larger document, which I think you probably should take a look at. And I just kind of, again, reversed the order. I put the Dewey assessment up first, and then kind of lead you down into some of the more detailed information about other municipalities and some details about what each of the cells in that grid really represent. It's easily accessible. Just do a web search for Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Plan. It'll pop right up.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
As a tangent, I keep thinking, I want to explore how hard it would be to have like an opt-in text, because it bothers me the idea that our plan is to have you go to the website. What if we don't have power?
Well,
Yeah.
right, that occurred to me as well.
And I've checked into hotels that do like the opt-in text for the property, Anyway, that's just in the back.
Well,
of my-
there is
Kate,
information.
Kate, can you say something?
Yeah, we were approved to start the Code Red system. So we are going to start the process of getting that implemented, which from what I'm told from the Code Red system takes about 30 days or less.
And what is that?
That is text notifications.
Okay, great.
And they work with like geofencing.
Yeah.
So, and the national call database to pull data. So yeah, anyone who is in town
Right, so temporary
would get,
visitors,
yeah,
exactly.
an emergency
Yeah, that's
notification
exactly
from the
what I
town.
was thinking.
Rehoboth uses it as well, but we did finally get some pricing on it. It's actually pretty affordable, so we did get approval from the mayor to go ahead and start it.
And that will apply to anybody, whether it's a property owner or a tourist.
Correct.
Perfect. Anybody have questions on that? Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. As you can see, there's certainly other things going on, and we need to just get an update on that.
And that obviously, just that information, right, because you were talking about that earlier, as something that would be.
We got approval this afternoon, so.
Oh, wow. Great timing. Other comments? Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, Gary, you're going to give us an update, which we now have partial update from Kate on what's changed since that study was done and that grid was prepared, and bring that back for us to analyze if there's more for us to do on that. Any member of the public have any comments? I don't see anybody virtually. We have one member present in person and no comments, so thank you. Any other topic that any of the members believe we should discuss at this time versus tabling it until our next meeting and seeing where we go?
Deborah, I did want to point out there is a member of the public on the virtual room. So
Okay.
just for the record.
If there's a member of the public virtually, do you have any comments?
That's Ellen McIntyre. She's with the Gazette.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any comments. Sorry.
Thank you very much for letting us know, and we're glad that you're joining us. Okay, if that is everything for today, do I have any motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition, the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.